Dog Nation. Welcome in to Go With The Flow, presented by R.S. Andrews. This is Dog Nation's weekly look at games from a point spread perspective with the entirety of the Dog Nation team. And, of course, our special guest each week, Dari Payro from R.S. Andrews. We've got plenty of thoughts on all the action from, admittedly, a little bit of a step down for week 2 in college football, but nonetheless, a chance to see the Georgia Bulldogs and a chance to see our first really big showdown between the SEC and Big Ten this year, at least one of the first big chances there on that. And, of course, the first conference game in SEC play there as well. All of that here coming up in just a moment. However, since we do pick games from a point spread perspective, we also chart our picks there as well, putting our money where our mouth is. Taking a look at the action from last week. Well, look at that. Lo and behold, there's BA right there at the top. 5-1 last week. Winning week for Connor Riley, Jeff Sintel there as well. Kaylee Manziel, Mike Griffith, both 3-3 last week. And for week 1, our reigning champ, Dari Payro, 2-4, but plenty of time to, of course, correct all of that, including with this week's games. We'll have those picks here coming up for you in just a moment. And, of course, all of this brought to you by our friends at R.S. Andrews. When you turn to for your air conditioning, heating, plumbing, and electric needs, I want you to think about those plumbing issues there just for a moment. If you have a water heater that goes out, or if you have, we always call this show Go With The Flow because R.S. Andrews kind of keeps things flowing around your house the way it's supposed to. Well, if your plumbing's not flowing the right way because of some sort of issue, I don't know what it is. Our folks at R.S. Andrews, they know all about it, though, and they'll come out and every single time they'll show up on time. They'll do the work that's promised for the price that's promised. That is what R.S. Andrews is all about. So please find them online at rsandrews.com. And speaking of being online, you'll have to go online this week to watch the Georgia game against Tennessee Tech. This is also an issue where you have a Power 4 team in Georgia against an FCS opponent. Point spread line's not readily available, so I have concocted a line for this game. This is the only time this year we'll have to do this. I have concocted a line of 44.5. I could tell you how I got to this, but frankly, it'd just be too long and tedious. But the point is, we have power rated this game for Georgia as a 44.5-point favorite over Tennessee Tech for Saturday. For more on the game, before we get our official picks, let's hear from our Cody Chaffins.
It'll be a 2 o'clock kick for the Dogs home opener taking on Tennessee Tech. The Golden Eagles almost pulled the upset against Middle Tennessee last week, but ended up losing 32-25. In that game, former Milton State champion quarterback and Georgia Tech quarterback Jordan Yates caught a touchdown pass for Tennessee Tech. He is now a wide receiver there. Now, most places don't have a spread for this game, but we're going to roll with a 44.5-point spread. Remember, the Dogs in their last 3 games against FCS opponents won by an average of 41 points.
So good stuff there from Cody Chaffins. Mike Griffith, we come to you. The sort of contrived line here is 44.5. Where do you want to go with that for Georgia against a Tennessee Tech team that looked pretty game last week against Middle Tennessee State?
Yeah, they looked awful good, but not good enough. Give me Georgia and give those points, B. I think the Dogs are going to roll, and Bobo's going to pad some stats.
So that is that. Jeff Sintel, how about for you? 44.5.
Not scared of that one. A lot of Dogs are going to get opportunities. You could probably combine Middle Tennessee State and Tennessee Tech, and I'd still lay those 44. Give me the Dogs.
You can call these guys the yellow fella because right now they are just stacking wood there when it comes to the big number. Connor Riley, are you in on that as well?
Yeah, and if I'm wrong on this, this shouldn't count against my record since it's not a real line. Give me Georgia minus 44.
We've all agreed to play by the same rules here. Kaylee Manziel, it is all Georgia all the time here. What do you think? Is it, you feeling the same way here on that?
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to go with the rest of the group. I think everybody's going to get to see the love this week, grab some touchdowns, and they're just going to take some risk on the offense. So give me the Dogs here. So
obviously I like Georgia as well to win in what I would assume is blowout fashion. But, 40 has proven to be a pretty key number for UG. I hate to be the wet blanket here, but in their last 10 games as a favorite of 40 or more points, this dates back to the beginning of the 2018 season. Georgia's just 0-9-1 against the spread when favored by more than 40 points. So, to be completely honest, I think you could set it at 44.5. I think you could set it lower than that. Anywhere in that 40-ish type number. I don't think it's the same Georgia team as it was last week. I think they are less motivated. I think they're probably kind of looking to get out of this game and get ready for the SEC opener next week against Kentucky. Daria, I hate to be the wet blanket here, but I actually like Tennessee Tech plus the points. I see Georgia winning this game by a margin that's just smaller than that. But the flow is decidedly on UGA. Do you want to go with the flow and take Georgia minus the big number?
I think I'm going to go with you and take Tennessee Tech and the points. It's a big number. I mean, it's plausible. I think the starters would have to put up at least 35 points, 35-0 at halftime or something for them to cover. I think they're just going to be underneath that. I'm with you, Tennessee Tech.
So that gets us started here with the Georgia Bulldogs against Tennessee Tech on Saturday. Not the biggest game, but the biggest game of them all when it comes to this particular Saturday is an incredible showdown involving one of the marquee teams in the brand-new SEC, one of the standard bearers of the old Big Ten that also sees that league welcome in new members there as well. We'll be watching closely for these SEC Big Ten showdowns all year long, the same way we did last week with LSU and USC. But now, though, it is Michigan hosting the Texas Longhorns, and our Cody Chaffins has more on what to expect when these two megawatt programs get together on the football field.
The national champs are Big House Dogs this week as Texas comes up to take on Michigan in a nooner. Michigan failed to cover the 21-point spread last week against Fresno State, and it's pretty clear they are not the same team as last year. But they have won 23 games in a row at home. Texas, on the other hand, 7-0 in their last 7 true road games.
So, Mike Griffith, they come back to you. I think this is going to be a fun one. I know all Georgia fans, at least for the most part, are looking forward to settling in and watching this after their game is concluded. Texas goes on the road as a 7.5-point favorite with the reigning national champs in the Big House. How do you see this one playing out?
Boy, that half a point, I was able to get it at 7 earlier this week. I still think Texas is going to beat Michigan. I think Texas is too explosive. All gas, no brakes. Hook 'em horns. Take Texas. Lay the points.
So that is Mike Griffith there. Jeff Sintel, how about for you with that number sitting at 7.5?
Yeah, I have to go back a long way to see a defending champion at home be underdog by this many in the following season. I like it. I like those points. Give me the points. Give me Michigan in the Big House. I think this is going to be a close, hard-fought game. Remember, Michigan's defense is still among the very best in the country.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Still pretty talented on the defensive side, although struggling, especially maybe at the quarterback position. But an interesting pick from Jeff. And a split decision here between Jeff and Mike. Connor, break the tie for us.
Michigan.
Horns down from Connor on the side of the Michigan Wolverines. This is actually getting really, really interesting. Kaylee, I'm fascinated to see where you fall on all of this.
I feel like taking Michigan here would be like trying to retap an old keg. Look, the best days are behind them. There's no point in going back on it. I like what I saw out of Texas last week. Did not like what I saw out of Michigan. Give me Texas.
Yeah, I'm on Texas here or there as well. I mean, frankly, I think that Texas' ability to score, even against good defense, puts too much pressure on what Michigan's clearly not good at. I'd put Michigan in that similar category of Florida State. We've seen them, I think, proven as frauds through 2 weeks to begin the 2024 season. You know, at the beginning of the year, I sort of had Michigan among those top 10 preseason ranked teams that would have a chance to disappoint perhaps early. I had Michigan there on that. And obviously, the win for Michigan against Alabama in the college football playoff a year ago, fresh on everyone's mind. But that's the real outlier here for the most part. Michigan just 3-7 straight up and 4-6 against the spread in its last 10 against SEC competition. Now, I realize that Texas is a relatively new SEC team, but they have built themselves for the SEC. Better on the line of scrimmage, overall much deeper, I would say, than the Michigan roster. I think this is a game in which the conventional wisdom is probably right. The half point means a lot here. Texas confidence in excess of a touchdown. I'd ride that steam here a little bit, Dari. I like Texas by a pretty good bit in the Big House on Saturday. That puts the flow as well on the side of the Longhorns. Do you want to go with the flow and take Texas?
Yeah, I like the Horns here. I think there's just more probability of them kind of busting this game open through the air with Quinn Ewers and the wide receivers than it is Michigan kind of hanging in and keeping it close. Give me the Horns to cover, win by double digits.
Fun game to watch for, though. Really contrasting styles and major programs. This is macro college football. It should be a lot of fun. And it's not the only instance of kind of an SEC interconference matchup. We got another example of this here, there as well, as Arkansas gets ready to go to Stillwater and take on a Oklahoma State team that kind of likes its pathway here in the Big 12 here right now. Fans certainly fired up there. And for Arkansas, a team that gets kicked around a lot in the SEC, a chance to maybe go outside the league and get a rare win as of late. For more on that, let's get the tail of the tape between the Cowboys and the Razorbacks.
It'll be an 11 o'clock local kickoff for an old Southwest Conference matchup in Stillwater on Saturday. Arkansas and Oklahoma State getting together for the first time since 1980. Now, in Bobby Petrino's first game back with the Razorbacks, they put up 70 last week, but they'll be getting 7.5 as they take on Oklahoma State. Now, the Cowboys, they are 4-0 against the spread against non-conference power teams since 2017.
And as Cody points out, pretty quietly, Mike Gundy's a very good spread coach. If you kind of keep long-term records of things like that, Cowboys typically pretty good against the spread. Gundy has a tendency to kind of find that number. Obviously, Ollie Gordon, one of the top players in the country, a Heisman contender at running back there for the Pokes as well. Mike Griffith, we come to you. Another example of a 7.5-point line. What do you think about Stillwater, where the Cowboys are favored by 7.5?
I'm drinking the Sam Pittman Petrino Kool-Aid. Give me Arkansas and 7.5 on the road.
So Mike on the side of the Hogs here. Jeff Sintel, how about for you?
I guess I'm drinking the Mike Gundy seltzer. I like the Heisman Trophy. I like the Heisman Trophy candidate at running back. I like the fact that the Pokes are at home. I'm going to lay those points. Give me the Cowboys.
Another split decision here. These picks are fun here this week. We got some division here in the ranks. Connor, I'll come to you to break that tie here once again.
Yeah, it's a lot of points. I feel like I'm going to be breathing through a straw late on this one, but give me Oklahoma State minus 7.5. I like this team out of the Big 12.
All right, Kaylee, what do you think? A good one here, but I think it's a good football game anyway, between Arkansas and Oklahoma State. What do you want to do with this number?
There is no better underdog to take against the spread other than Arkansas. Even when they were on their 6-game losing streak last year, the 5 of those games were decided by 1 touchdown. Give me Woo Pig Suey.
I like it. Can you do the Woo Pig Suey thing with the hands and stuff like that too? Kaylee, can you do all that for us there as well?
If they cover for me, then next week I'll do it. How about that?
Sounds like a good idea. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I think that's a really good idea. So a couple of things here. Thing number one is this. I don't want to sugarcoat this. Arkansas is in a pretty tough situation when it comes to the SEC right now. Difficult schedule, not expected to match up well with it. The people in Fayetteville, and I've had a couple conversations, I think they kind of know that. But here's the other thing, too, and this is worth kind of filing away here a little bit. They like their quarterback, Taylon Green, who comes over from Boise State. They think they really stole him probably in a way that didn't maybe get a ton of attention there. We had somebody mention earlier the big performance last week against Arkansas Pine Bluff. Well, Green had 317 yards, 4 touchdowns in the first half there in that spot. This is also an Arkansas team because it knows SEC wins are probably hard to come by, is also maybe looking to get something outside the league, gives it a chance to play closer. Last 10 games against Big 12 foes, this dates back quite a long time. 8-2 straight up, also 8-2 against the spread. They like this league. In the Sam Pittman era, that's 2 outright wins, bowl game against Kansas. That's a very impressive win in September of 2021 against Texas. Arkansas seems to show up for the Big 12. Geographically, they're closer. It's a chance to get the kind of wins they can't get in the SEC. I don't know how good of a year it's going to be for Arkansas, but I believe it's going to be a good Saturday on the back of Taylon Green, who they think is a pretty good quarterback. I like Arkansas plus the points on Saturday. That puts the flow on the side of Arkansas as well. Dar, you want to go with the flow and take the underdog Razorbacks?
Yeah, this is a really tough game. I mean, Oklahoma State, I think, has 19 returning starters this year. They're playing at home. But I'm going to take Pittman and the Razorbacks here. I think they're going to find a way to get a cover in this game. I think it's going to be really close.
So there you have it. Dari Payro also on the side of the Arkansas Razorbacks there as well. Kind of a fun game matching a Big 12 team and an SEC team. That ought to be a lot of fun for Saturday. And speaking of fun action on Saturday for the first time here in the 2024 season, we also get an SEC matchup there as well. Perhaps extra intrigue for this one for Georgia Bulldogs fans because not only is it the beginning of SEC play, it's also a preview of Georgia's first SEC opponent on the road next Saturday in Lexington. It's Kentucky in this game, though, hosting a South Carolina team, reeling after a closer-than-expected game last week against Old Dominion. Let's find out more about these two teams before we make our official picks.
It's a ball game that Georgia fans will have their eyes on Saturday. A 3:30 kick in Lexington as South Carolina takes on Kentucky. Wildcats get their first 4 games of the year all at home. This game opened with Kentucky a 6-point favorite, but after South Carolina struggled with Old Dominion last week, that line is now 10.5 points in favor of Kentucky. South Carolina, they've gone under their last 4 games, and that number has also changed. It is now just 42.5 points.
So good breakdown there by Cody Chafin's kind of a one-way street on the side of Big Blue here right now. Sits at 10.5 at the moment, Mike. Does Kentucky cover that number in Brock Vandegrift's SEC debut? Take it away.
Yeah, boy, that's tough. That's a big line there, Cody. I wish you would have grabbed those 6.5 for the purposes of this show. Who knows? Maybe it'll be back down to 9, BA. 10.5 is a big number, and I really like Shane Beamer. But, man, Lexington, Kentucky, the Wildcats were rolling, didn't play a full game, probably leave those starters in. I'm going to take the Wildcats to win big. It could be 20.5, and I would take Brock Vandegrift and the Wildcats.
So a lot of love for Mike for Kentucky right there. Jeff Sintel, how about for you? Double-digit number in the first SEC game of the season.
Yeah, last week with South Carolina and Old Dominion was dreadful. I think Old Dominion only won 6 games last year. I guess there will be no division among the ranks on this pick, Brandon. I like Big Blue Nation. I like a 3:30 kick. I like 10.5 at home. Lay the points. Give me Big Brock Nation to cover in this one.
Boy, everybody just giving up here on South Carolina after a bad week 1. Connor, are you in on that too?
I am. There's no sense in loading a clean dishwasher, and I just was really worried about what you see out of South Carolina in week 1 there. So give me Kentucky this week, minus the 10.5 points. It's more than I would like for a home favorite, but I just can't trust South Carolina here.
Boy, it sounds easy so far, Kaylee. Is it that easy for you? Is it Kentucky minus 10.5?
Once I saw this line, it got a little bit tricky for me just because I feel like I'm trying to call strikes from the outfield here or something. But Kentucky dominated game 1 despite getting cut short. South Carolina was lucky to pull away with that win. So I'm going to ride with everyone else. Go Cats.
So my general theory about stuff like this is I try to be as contrarian as I can possibly be because contrarian's typically the right side to be in a lot of cases. I have looked for everything I can find to try to take South Carolina in this game. The truth is, I like some of the stuff I saw from Dylan Stewart pass rush last week for South Carolina. I think that Rocket Sanders, speaking of Arkansas, an Arkansas transfer could be a factor for the Gamecock offense during the season. South Carolina is actually 6-4 in its last 10 against the spread versus SEC competition. So keeping it a little closer than the experts think against league foes has not been impossible for them. But I just can't get there. I really can't. Kentucky kind of finds itself ahead of a key number here at 10.5. In their last 10, when favored by 10 or more points in SEC play, they're 7-3 against the spread there in that spot, or I should say last 10 overall when favored by 10 or more points. They're 7-3. So they don't get a lot of chances to be a double-digit favorite, but they've been the right side when pitched that way in recent years under Mark Stoops. I have a tendency to believe that's the case here, there as well. It takes me a while to get to this, Dari, and I don't love the pick necessarily, but I can't make the contrarian case for South Carolina here in this spot no matter how hard I try. So the flow decidedly on Big Blue Nation here. Is it that easy for you as well?
I mean, Gamecocks looked awful last week. I mean, it feels like they're on the verge of free fall, almost a Florida State type free fall. However, I'm going to zig when you guys are zagging. I'm going to take the Gamecocks to cover this game in a grind-it-out, weird game in Lexington.
I really do think that when it's all said and done, Dari may end up being the right one here, and the rest of us on Kentucky, I think, at least from a point spread perspective, we may all be wrong because college football games are just not easy to predict. And anytime everybody sort of thinks they see the same thing, it has a tendency not to be that way. I think this one's worth circling here. Dari having the guts to go contrarian when, as I said before, I tried to make that case and just can't. This is one worth watching pretty closely here on Saturday. Now, if you watch Dog Nation Dailies on Friday, we have our R.S. Andrews cool down at the conclusion of each show. And this year we're doing something very fun for the Friday show. We're giving you an extra pick in addition to what we always make as a part of this program. We're giving you one of those picks as a part of the R.S. Andrews cool down each Friday. So please make sure if you missed today's edition of Dog Nation Daily, go back and rewatch it on YouTube. At the end of the show, you'll get a chance to see our thoughts on a really compelling game as an SEC team. Tennessee goes on the road to NC State. Point spread, folks, kind of telling you the conventional wisdom may not hold as far as that particular game goes in Raleigh for NC State against Tennessee. We'll make that pick for you on Friday's edition of Dog Nation Daily, which has already aired by the time you see this. So go back and check that for more on that. But for today, our final pick for this slate of games also keeps us here in SEC country, a home game at Jordan-Hare Stadium as the Cal Berkeley Bears come to town, fresh off a pretty disappointing game for Auburn last year out west. For more on that, here's Cody Chaffins once again.
We love a good ACC-SEC matchup, and that's what we'll get with Cal at Auburn, 3:30 on Saturday down on the Plains. This line has also seen a little movement with the Tigers now laying 2 more points than the original 11.5. I guess a 73-3 beatdown of Alabama A&M will do that. That was the largest margin of victory in Auburn school history, by the way. This is a rematch of last year's matchup out in Berkeley. Auburn won that one 14-10. We'll see if they can do it again. It's a whiteout at Jordan-Hare.
So thank you, Cody Chaffins, and also in my ear correcting me that the NC State-Tennessee game that will pick up part of Dog Nation Daily in the R.S. Andrews cooldown also takes place in Charlotte here. Neutral site there on that. That is my error. But nonetheless, it's Auburn at home, 13.5-point favorite over the Cal Bears. Now, as Cody said, in the ACC. Mike Griffith, we're back to you.
I'm going to drink through the straw. I'm going to call a strike from the outfield. I'm going to load a clean dishwasher. I'm going to take Auburn and drop 13.5 points on Cal.
So, Mike on the side of the home favorite. Jeff Sintel, what about for you?
What do they say in Auburn these days? Freeze warning. I think there will be a shortage of toilet paper across Jordan-Hare this weekend. A happily success there. I like Auburn. I like their offense. I like their receivers, especially against the Cal team that only won 6 games a year ago in that mighty now Pac-2. Lay the points. Give me the Tigers.
So, Connor Riley, how about for you? Pretty big number for an Auburn team that struggled on the road at Cal last year. What do you think about 13.5 and Hugh Freeze?
Yeah, this is a Cal program that feels like it's been painting in the rain a lot in recent years, just sort of spinning its wheels, stuck in place. But as America's premier Pac-12 tout a season ago, and as someone who picked USC to beat LSU a week ago and was the only one in this program to do so, I'm not scared off by those points. I think Jaden Ott is a name to know, and he's going to have a big day for Cal running the football. So give me those Cal Golden Bears this weekend, plus the 13.5.
So I'm assuming these are some sort of song reference, Connor. Is this a pop cultural reference of some kind?
No, they were just, trying out some new catchphrases.
All right, listen, I think you got to put it out there. Put it against the wall, and we'll see what sticks there on all of that. Somebody who knows her way around some song references from time to time, too, is Kaylee Manziel. Kaylee, what about your pick for Auburn hosting Cal?
The stakes are different here. It's at Auburn. They're healthy. I don't feel great taking Connor against this right here, but I'm going to have to go the Tigers.
All right, so that is that. I'm going to take Auburn here in this spot there as well. The one thing that we see historically, Auburn just very good against the spread as a home favorite. Now, obviously, tough times the last couple of years has watered that number down a little bit. They're just 5-5 in their last 10. But long term, 26-4 straight up as in their last 30 as a home favorite at Jordan-Hare Stadium. That's also 18-12 against the number during that span there as well. I think it's an Auburn team that has some major issues at quarterback, and I think they're probably a year away from true SEC contention. But much like I said about Arkansas a little earlier, a game like this, you got to give your fans something, and this may be Hugh Freeze's way of giving something to Auburn fans as a way of cultivating future belief for 2025, perhaps with some of that in short supply here in 2024. So sizable number, but a stadium that Auburn's pretty comfortable in. I'll take Auburn minus the points. That puts the flow on the side of War Eagle there as well. So, Dari, with that in mind, do you want to go with the flow and take Auburn?
Absolutely. I like them more. I like their offense a lot more than Cal's offense, and I like their defense a lot more than Cal's defense. I think they're going to beat them at both sides of the ball. I think it's going to be a blowout victory for the Tigers.
So that is that. A lot of love there for Auburn, and a couple of reminders before we get ready to say goodbye to you. As we promised, on Friday's edition of Dog Nation Daily, our R.S. Andrews cool down at the conclusion of the show, you can see our best bets for the week beyond just the board, the ones we're picking for our standings. Everything else we think about a wild week 2 in college football, you get that. And our official pick for Tennessee, representing the SEC in Charlotte against the NC State Wolfpack. We will give you that as a part of Friday's edition of Dog Nation Daily in the R.S. Andrews cool down at the conclusion of the show. And as always, thanks to R.S. Andrews for making this show possible. Find them online, rsandrews.com. A lot of hot weather still left. That means you're concerned about your air conditioning unit kind of keeping up with this incredibly hot weather. Well, get the peace of mind you need by getting your air conditioning unit tuned back up to factory fresh specs. Find R.S. Andrews online at rsandrews.com for much more on that. Of course, thank you for joining us each week for our R.S. Andrews Cool Down Picks as we give you our thoughts on the action from a point spread perspective. Best of luck for you with your own picks. Best of luck, of course, to the Georgia Bulldogs as a heavy favorite against Tennessee Tech. And we'll see you again next week at this same time for Go with the Flow, presented by R.S. Andrews.